Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Election 2023. My name is Jesus Salazar. I am the host of this show. For the first half an hour, we're going to be talking to two candidates that are running for alderperson. And in the second half an hour, we'll be talking to a current alderman and a young lady by the name of Betty Magnus, who will be talking about the mayoral election and the city council's composition, roles, and responsibilities. Right now, at this time, I would like to welcome our first candidate running for alderperson. Her name is Aida Flores. She's running for alderperson in the 25th Ward. Welcome.
Thank you.
Aida, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I was born and raised in the Pilsen community. My parents originally immigrated from Guerrero, Mexico. And like many other parents, they entrusted my education and my siblings' education to the three public schools in the community. Pilsen, Orozco, and Benito Juarez had a very untraditional life story. When I became a mother at 14 years old and my partner was 15. We were very fortunate, though, to have the support of our parents and community at the time in Pilsen, community resources, and phenomenal teachers at Benito Juarez that really changed my life trajectory. As a result of their mentorship and guidance, earned the Bill Gates Scholarship at Benito Juarez, went on to Georgetown University, and so naturally came back and became a public school teacher at Benito Juarez. Always been curious and trying to figure out how do we best serve and have the greatest impact for communities like mine, for families like mine. So decided to pursue a master's in school leadership at Harvard, and then came back and became a school leader for the Chicago Public Schools on the north side, on the south side, in many different communities. And so dedicated my career to public service the last 15 years and pivoting into government because I know how important it is to ensure that we bring resources into our community, that we have effective progressive leadership that can actually work to get things done for communities like mine. So proudly running in the Pilsen Little Village community of the 25th Ward.
Wow. Young lady, you right now, as it stands today, you are a success story. I mean, coming from Pilsen, growing up in a poor neighborhood, and going to Georgetown University, that is a lot. But let me ask you a question. Running for alderperson is a very difficult job. It takes away from your family, it takes away from your job, it's time consuming. Why? Why did you decide to run for alderperson in the 25th Ward?
Well, I mean, I ran 4 years ago. 4 years ago, we have dropped off our firstborn daughter to college. And my 4-year-old was growing up again in the same community that I've grown up, that I've raised a child. And I was extremely frustrated with the corruption, with the division, with everything that I had seen in my community growing up. And so 4 years ago, I ran and wanted to make sure that we brought in leadership that actually worked to help our communities, that ensure that every child can thrive, that our elders can stay put and live in their own community. And so while it is a lot of work, it's no strange thing to me or strange feat to me. Everything has been a lot of work, but it's always been in the service of making sure that kids like me, parents like my parents, are able to actually make it in our communities. And so fortunate enough that this is a family campaign, a community-driven campaign that is really centering on making sure that we actually get the resources that we need in our communities, because I want to continue raising my own child in a safe, thriving neighborhood. And so I don't think there's a better place to do that. And I think naturally my role and my work as a principal, as a teacher, translates very well into what the aldermanic position is supposed to be, which is to be the people-facing, the one connecting the resources between residents, neighbors, and city government. And so I think it's a natural pivot for me.
Oh, great. For our viewers out there, this is a live call-in show. So if you would like to ask Aida or anyone else who's going to be on this panel this evening a question or make a comment, please feel free to give us a call. The number to call in is 312-738-1845. Again, 312-738-1845. Now, Aida, can you briefly tell our viewers what the boundaries of the 25th Ward are?
Yes. So it goes from Canal Street. It picks up all of Halsted, University Village, University Commons, all of Pilsen, and it goes west into Little Village, and it includes Marshall Square. Little Village, we go all the way to Holman Street, so it includes the Little Village, the arches of Little Village.
Now, years ago, it also included Chinatown, but I guess with the remap, Chinatown has been taken out of the
Out of the ward.
25th Ward?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, what have you been hearing from the community as you've been going around to the community?
It reaffirmed a lot of what I saw over the last 4 years, that leadership absolutely matters. I'm an avid door knocker. I love being able to talk to residents and hear directly from them. And what I've heard that all of these communities share in common is that public safety is a concern. What I've heard, especially for those of us that have been in the same ward under the leadership of Alderman Byron Cicho Lopez, is that we have a ward office that's not responsive to our community. We have concerns about the cleanliness, the infrastructure, the basic needs of our community. And there are, the forces of displacement are very much prevalent with the tax increase that we're facing. And so we have residents that are very concerned of our, our livelihood in the 25th Ward, whether it's public safety, whether it's high taxation, and just not feeling like we're taken care of in our community and prioritized.
Okay. Now, as you said, Byron Cicho is the current alderman there. He's the incumbent.
Correct.
He's finishing his first term as alderman. What is the biggest difference between you and him? Why should the voters vote for you and not him?
Yes. So, great question. Have received that several times throughout, especially because we ran in the same cycle 4 years ago, 237 votes from the runoff. And it really comes down to three things. He's been completely ineffective. His combative leadership style has not helped us, and he's been extremely deceitful to the voters. So when we look at the role of an alderperson, your job is to have a ward office that's responsive to the needs of our residents. So for example, we have aldermanic menu money that we get every year to utilize for infrastructure, for city services, cleanliness, street lighting, different things, right? Our alderman has not submitted a single aldermanic menu request. The city has had to allocate, all of that for us. The second thing that an alderman is supposed to do is ensure that we fulfill our 311 requests to the greatest extent possible, right? And that is when you're calling about graffiti, about lead in your water, again, infrastructure needs or concerns. We have twice the amount of unfulfilled city 311 requests than any other ward in the city of Chicago. That means we have over 3,735 unfulfilled 311 requests. That is a very basic function of an alderman, of an alderman or alderwoman in this case, and that is not common anywhere else in the city but in our particular ward. So it is no surprise that when we're walking down the street, it feels like a dilapidated community. It feels dirtier. It feels like infrastructure makes it hard for our parents to be able to walk through to drop off kids to school, our elders to be able to walk safely in their community. The second thing is that his combative leadership style has not been beneficial to anybody. Part of your job is to legislate and to work with others on pushing policies forward, such as like other candidates and other aldermen have been able to do, push treatment, not trauma, work with others to legislate and help us in our communities. And unfortunately, he's had a combative leadership style where he basically stands on the sidelines whenever it comes to negotiating on behalf of residents, whether that's the budget, whether it's allocating resources. His approach is one where it doesn't go far enough. And because it doesn't go far enough, I stay on the sidelines and I participate in the party of no. And then when everybody votes in favor of passing the budget, which they will, right? You stood in the sidelines and you had no impact in negotiating on behalf of residents. So that combative leadership style doesn't serve us well. And then the third thing is, is extremely deceitful to the voters. So when we talk about 4 years ago, the Sims metal shredder was still a concern back then. It's been a concern since I was growing up and going to high school. The asthma rates in our community increased. Our alderman, said he was going to address that. He was somehow going to change all of these things for us. And what we found out was that under his leadership, not only did he co-host community events that he complained about his predecessor in the past, but the second thing he did is he gave them new permits under his leadership. Didn't remediate the situation, didn't pull the polluters out of our community, didn't fix or didn't have a plan whatsoever to address it. And so what makes the biggest difference is that I am the type of leader that is going to be focused on my ward and making sure that we have an effective ward office, making sure that I'm working with others to bring the resources to our community, and making sure that I'm running a transparent, ward office with all of our constituents and residents.
Now, these issues that you raise, are those the top issues that you've been hearing from the residents as you go door to door knocking?
So elements of them, right? I've heard public safety as the top one. And so when we think about public safety, I've talked about a three-step approach, right, of how we're going to address it. And elements of his combative behavior or leadership style have actually regressed us when it comes to public safety, right? When we're addressing holistic public safety, we need to foster community. I grew up in Pilsen. I grew up in a community that felt the tension of gangs and police, right, within the residents, the community that we live in. But there was also a sense of community that we had, which was we had our street masses, right, on the block where the priest would come in and we would have 50 residents there listening to a sermon. You don't have to be Catholic, but that brought a sense of peace, a sense of community into our neighborhood. We had Hoops in the Hood, where nonprofits would bring in 2 basketball courts, burgers, and hot dogs in areas that seem like a hot spot for young people to engage with your elders to build community, right? So I want to foster community, model that accordingly. The second thing is, we have to invest in violence prevention programming. We have to ensure that we're bringing our clinicians, our social workers in all parts of the community, whether that's your park, your community center, and your schools. Our alderman has voted against some of these fundings because it didn't go far enough in the budget process, but didn't negotiate to bring more resources, right? And then the third thing is engaging all stakeholders. So when I say the combative leadership style that is an anomaly from the rest of the city, is one in which he speaks about with all stakeholders in a way that's only representative of his emotions or his feelings or his agenda and not representative of the entire ward. So we have to work with our 12th district, with our 10th district police district, with the newly elected police district councils to hold police accountable and also ensure that they're effective, professional, and ethical in keeping our community safe, right? Engaging the nonprofits. And so I've heard, from our residents, we're concerned about public safety, right? And the leadership style, the ineffectiveness, the deceitfulness, the combativeness has not served us well in increasing, our sense of public safety in the community. We heard, there was a police shooting. I apologize. There was a school shooting right outside Benito Juarez, right at Dismissal. Last Friday, we had 2 separate incidents.
The school shooting, you referred to the 2 young men that were killed, right?
Correct.
And they just recently arrested the shooter.
Correct.
That's the shooting you're referring to, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
and there have been other shootings near schools, Orozco and Perez, as of last week, between 3 and 4 o'clock. That is uncommon. It doesn't happen. It hasn't been a pattern that was happening throughout, my upbringing in the community. Children were able to go to school, come home, play, and then go inside, right? It is becoming very prevalent in our neighborhood. And I think we're gonna need a leader that is effective, collaborative, and can make sure that we're actually addressing these concerns for our community.
Oh, okay. Now, being an alderman or incumbent has its advantages. How can you overcome the advantages that an incumbent has? Because I ran for alderman many years ago and against an incumbent, and it was very difficult. I was not successful in my election bid, so I know the toils that you're going through, okay? So how can you overcome the advantages that come with being an incumbent?
Yeah, I mean, the advantages exist. I think, first of all, you engage every voter at the door. You go door to door, and I've been doing it since August. And that grit and that desire to serve my community has been there because I've seen it for the past 4 years, what we didn't get, right? And so, one, running a very strategic grassroots campaign, talking to all of the voters, looking at the track record and realizing, we deserve a lot better. That role is to ensure that we are actually serving this community and focus on the livelihoods and the quality of life of the neighborhood. And I think it's resonating with residents. They want somebody that is responsive to their basic needs, that is actually working to address these complicated issues, right? That is collaborative. And so while having incumbency, there's advantages to it, I'm very gritty. And this is a community that I've grown up and raised children. So there's a strong work ethic and passion behind the work that I'm doing. And I think ultimately there's ability to relate to everybody else, right? So I've said this is being alder mom, right? Being able to take care of our entire ward is something that's important to me because I want to make sure that we all thrive, from our youngest residents to our eldest residents, and being able to knock every door, communicate with our residents, hear out their concerns, and bring them to be a part of this campaign has proven to be a very winning strategy. We have a lot of volunteers that are, residents that have grown up in the community. We have volunteers that were former students. I just had one of my former students from Benito Juarez who lives in the community actually go out to canvas today. And so while there's advantages to being an incumbent, I think in our particular case, the community sees the need that we have, and our alderman had 4 years to accomplish something, and unfortunately has no track record of accomplishing anything except for being divisive, ineffective, and deceitful to our ward.
Okay, let me ask you a question also. I've been told, I haven't actually seen it myself, but I've been told that the incumbent has been sending out attacks on you and your supporters. How do you respond to those attacks that are being sent out?
So I think number one, it speaks to his character as a leader, right? And his inability to actually be a bridge builder and actually get things done and work well for our community. Ultimately, the incumbency advantage would have made him be able to showcase his accomplishments. And so I think any rhetoric, any mudslinging that the alderman does is really because he has nothing to show and wants to make the case anything but the reality that he's been completely ineffective in our ward.
We're running out of time, but very quickly, if the viewers or the constituents in the 25th Ward would like to get in touch with you to learn more about you, to volunteer or ask you questions, how can they reach you?
So the first thing is I'm counting for your support. I'm asking for your support to give me the opportunity to ensure that we can actually deliver for our ward. We deserve leadership that is effective, that's progressive, that can get things done and can improve our quality of life in our communities. The second thing is to vote on February 28th and to punch 53. Feel free to check out our website to get involved and be part of this winning community-oriented campaign at www.flores.vote. And also feel free to stop by 1800 South Ashland. We are open every day, 10 a.m. It's a family, community, people-powered campaign. And so you're more than welcome to join us.
Well, thank you very much, Faida, for coming this evening to talk to us and the viewers. And hopefully you will win come February 28th, which is the date of the election, but early voting started this past Monday. You can vote early, but the actual election date is February 28th. Everybody, please go out there and vote. Vote your choice, please. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
I should look at you rather than
No,
at
well, you can look at me, but then when you're talking, talk to. Good evening again. I'm Jesus Salazar, the host of Election 2023. Our next guest is a young lady by the name of Renita Ward, who's running for alderperson in the 5th Ward. Now, the 5th Ward has a alderman that has retired. Her name is Leslie Hairston. So it's an open field, an open ward where you got several contenders vying for that position. We're going to be speaking to Renita, but let me remind the viewers that this is a call-in show. If you would like to call in to ask a question, make a comment, please call us at 312, I forgot my phone number. It's 312, well, we'll put it on the screen because I don't have that note. Ms. Renita Ward, would you please introduce yourself to the viewers and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. My name is Attorney Renita Q. Ward. I live in the Hyde Park community. As was mentioned, I am seeking to be the next 5th Ward alderperson. I currently practice as a healthcare attorney at one of the local hospitals and serve as a minister at one of the local churches in Washington Park. I really feel I'm uniquely qualified for this opportunity, not just because of my professional capabilities and having worked and served in the community as an attorney, but I have a lens towards the people and a compassionate way of making decisions, even when they're tough ones.
Okay. Now, for the viewers, I found my note for the live call-in number. It's area code 312-738-1845. Again, 312-738-1845. Now, Ms. Ward, tell the viewers why you got interested in running for this position.
So I have spent a lot of time in the community. I clerked over at the criminal courthouse, so it gave me kind of a bird's eye view into some of the challenges that people are facing in the community when they intersect with the criminal justice system. I also spent quite a few hours as a pro bono attorney working at the Trinity United Church of Christ Legal Clinic, and that's really helping folks come in with their everyday issues, everything from trying to get a security deposit back to trying to save a home from foreclosure, or maybe even trying to stave off an eviction. And so between those various roles, I began to see that people are really hurting, particularly in our ward. They're looking for someone who can listen and someone who can respond, and then someone who can ultimately advocate for their needs. And I feel like I am that person for them. I decided to raise my hand when I saw that that seat was open because I know that there is time for a change in the way that we run the city.
Okay. Can you briefly tell us what the boundaries are for the 5th Ward?
Certainly. Primarily, if you're looking at Hyde Park Boulevard, 51st, all the way down to 71st primarily, but there's a little pocket on 75th from South Shore, Lakeshore Drive, all the way over to Cottage Grove. That's Hyde Park, that's Indian Village, that's Greater Grand Crossing, that's South Shore community.
Now, so you've been canvassing, you've been knocking on door to doors, you've been talking to residents of the various communities within that ward. What have you been hearing from them? What are the top issues facing that ward?
People want to be safe. You know, that people want to be able to walk their dogs. They want to be able to go to the grocery store. Even if they're not their children, they want to be able to have kids play safely outside. The increase in crime and just the feeling that anything could happen, crime-related, unexpected, I think has creeped into most of the communities and most of the homes. People are looking for economic development, and they want that to be equal, not just in one part of the ward, but across the ward. That's the south and the north part of our ward. And so people want to close that gap between the haves and the have-nots.
Okay. And in the 5th Ward, there's 11 people vying for that one spot. What's the difference between you and those 11 people as to why the voters should vote for you and not the other 10 people that are running for that position?
I'm more than capability. You know, I'm compassion too. I think we are at a unique time, and we're going to be faced with some unique decisions that have to be made. Some of those may be tough decisions as it relates to how much people are paid, if the housing market is affordable, if a school will stay open or if a school will stay closed. And I'm capable of making those decisions, having practiced as an attorney, but I can do it with a compassionate view towards people and understand that it's not about pulling a lever or having the experience and the relationships to kind of navigate and broker something, but it's about remembering at the end of the day, there's a person on the end of that decision, and it has to be made thoughtfully.
Now, you mentioned public safety is an issue and economic development is also another issue in your ward. How do you plan on dealing with those two issues?
Well, you know, you mentioned door to door, you mentioned being about in the community, and I think it has to start with the people. You have to have a relationship with the folks who've been doing the work. Some of the things that are happening in South Shore in particular, even we have the University of Chicago in our community. There are some long stretching relationships there, and I think I need to come up alongside those individuals and those organizations and work with them as we craft new ideas.
And with respect to economic development? Okay.
Economic development. So I can get a little bit more
Sure,
specific.
go
You know, when we come to TIF dollars or even the expenditure of some grants in our neighborhood, I've heard the community say, we want it to be participatory. We want to have community engagement. I think that that's chiefly important to make space for community engagement, but it's more than a conversation. It actually results to the decisions that are made on the end.
Okay. Now, if you are elected, what is the first thing you would do as the alderperson of the Fifth Ward?
First thing I have to do is level set. I'm going to be in the council with some new peers. As you well know, we have a whole new class of folks coming in, and I think to get things done effectively in the Fifth Ward, have to have those relationships across the boundaries and working with my council people, and obviously want to be able to level set with the leader of the city, determining who the citizens of Chicago select. So my very first order of business is to make sure we're stable and ready to go.
Now, there's 9 individuals running for mayor of the city of Chicago, and I know you probably want to stay neutral because you got your own race to run, and you're concentrating on your own race. Will you be able to work with any of the 9 candidates if they're elected as mayor?
I think I have to say yes, because my responsibility for representing the 55,000 or 50,000 or so residents of the Fifth Ward who are going to elect me as their representative in City Hall, as their Fifth Ward alderperson, I need to be able to work with my peers and colleagues, but also with whom they select as the leader. I love the org chart of the City of Chicago. It has the citizens of Chicago at the top. It has the mayor, it has the city council, etc. And so part of my job description is not just working with other councilmen, but working effectively with the mayor of the City of Chicago.
Okay, yeah, because currently in the past council, as you know, there were some members that were fighting with the mayor, and pretty much very little was being done in their wards because they were fighting with the aldermen. For example, we just had a candidate that was here from the 25th ward, where the incumbent has been fighting with the mayor, and nothing's been done in the ward as a result of that. Nothing's been accomplished. So I'm glad to hear that. Now, you are aware that also for the first time we're electing council members for the City of Chicago Police Department Commission. Now, what's your role? What do you think your role is going to be working with those individuals?
Well, I think you nailed it. I'm going to be working with those individuals. One thing the people of Chicago have spoken, the citizens of Chicago have spoken, that's why we have those council people coming along. Their role is to be the voice of the people, and my role in another segment is to also be the voice of the people. And so level set is what I'm talking about, is really getting in as they craft what does it look like, because it's going to be new. What does it look like? I want to be there lockstep as they determine what it looks like, and to be collaborative with them, and then take that information right back to the people that I represent.
What else would you like the viewers to know that I haven't asked you? Is there anything else you would like to let the viewers know?
I want them to know that youth is very important to me. Our kids are our future as it relates to education, as it relates to job opportunities, as it relates to the reduction of crime, because we see the youth kind of percolating in that space. I'm committed to focusing on our kids with CPS, with those local organizations that are focused on apprenticeship programs, on jobs in the summer for our youth. I am committed to government efficiency. When you call my office, you will be able to reach someone, or if you leave a message, you can expect to hear back from us You can expect me to take advantage of technology. When I'm communicating with you, you'll hear regular community updates, but also this person-in-person that we have the privilege of doing right now. And then, of course, economic development and stability. We have the Obama Foundation and library coming on board. But we also just learned even here today that the Point on the lakeshore is going to be reserved as a landmark. And so you can count on me to be working with those organizations that are pushing forward various initiatives as it relates to environment in our ward. So a holistic approach. I like to say that we're moving forward together. I can't always move as fast as you want when you're moving forward together, but you can get some great stuff done. And I like to say when I go to City Hall, you go, which means that your voice goes. I see you, I hear you, and I look forward to representing you.
We're running short time, but let me ask you, look at that camera in front of you and firmly tell the voters of the 5th Ward why they should select you as the next alderperson.
5th Ward, Renita Q. Ward, Punch 51. I'm asking you to elect me as your 5th Ward alderperson because I am most capable as a practicing attorney. 5th Ward, Renita Q. Ward, because I'm a compassionate leader. Renita Q. Ward, Punch 51 on February 28th, and also early voting. Go ahead and cast for Renita Ward.
And let me just ask you, tell the viewers where they can contact you if they would like to volunteer on your campaign.
Thank you. www.electrenitaward.com. Again, that's www.electrenitaward.com.
Thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you so much. Great pleasure.
Good luck. Good luck. There's a lot of people in that race. 11 people.
It's a lot of people in the race.
Yeah.
But hopefully somebody saw something or heard something that was moving to them so that they can cast that vote. I recognize your name though. Are you involved with, is it IPO?
IPO. Welcome back to Election 2023. As I said earlier, this is a live call-in show. The number to call in is 312-738-1845. Again, 312-738-1845. Now, this second half of an hour, I would like to welcome two individuals who I know very well, known them for years. They're well regarded in the community. The first person is Betty Magnus of Chicago Women Take Action. Yes, thank you for coming. The next individual is David Moore, the Alderman of the 17th Ward. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Okay, guys, this evening we're going to spend the time talking about the council and the mayoral race. Let's just start with the council. You've been on the city council for 8 years now. You're going for your third term as alderman. And I noticed that you were unopposed from the beginning. No one decided to run against you, which is extraordinary considering that this year you only need a minimum of 473 signatures to get on the ballot, which is not that many signatures to get. So that speaks volumes about the work you've been doing in the ward. But let the viewers know, who may not know you, who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Alderman.
Right, thank you so much, and I'm just honored to be here. First of all, I'm a servant at heart, and I think that's what everyone has to be when they're going for this seat. I grew up in Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church under the leadership of the late, great Reverend Dr. Clay Evans. That was my mentor, my spiritual father, and my advisor. So everything that I am, and I give my mom the credit because she took us to fellowship. Mm-hmm. And it was through being at fellowship, being around people like Miss Betty Magnus here and others who we were taught early just how to serve. And so that's who I am. I came out of the projects of Chicago, moved to Inglewood when I was 11, thought I was moving to the suburbs. And my uncle was an assistant precinct captain. He would pay me $5 to run up and down the street putting literature in people's mailbox. I didn't care about any politics. I just want that $5 to get some Boston baked beans and Chico sticks with. But it changed my life when my uncle at the age of 13 took me to the Roberts Motel on 63rd and King Drive. And there I met a state senator by the name of Harold Washington who was running for Congress. And he talked about the importance of young people being involved. Now, although I had been serving in the church, I really wasn't serving in the community. I was conscious in terms of activism because if you was at fellowship, you had to be at push. Mm-hmm. And so the activism part was in me, but the politics wasn't. And serving in the community changed when Harold Washington, the things he said, and you know how eloquently he spoke, and that's what changed my mind, and that $5 no longer became important. So I just started serving in the community, and I kept doing that for years to come, serving with every alderman in the 17th Ward since I was 11, from Bill Shannon all the way up to Terry Peterson, and even my predecessor, Latasha Thomas, just serving. And then it was just a natural attrition when I got a calling on my life to run, and I did.
Oh. And you know this, that I grew up right next to Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church.
Right.
I spent the first 30 years of my life
You
there
told me
on
that.
45th Place, right next to the...
You got it. You
right
just said 45th place, Kristen.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Betty Magnus. Could you please tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Oh, God, what can I say?
We're going to be here three hours.
I am a political activist. I am if I'll give a couple of, should just give my titles or something.
Go ahead.
So I'm here today representing Chicago Women Take Action, which is a women's organization that gets involved in the city of Chicago. And we also work with the Alliance, what we call the Chicago Women's Alliance, and that's about 40 organizations of women and some men all across the country. IPO is all across the city, that is, and we hold forums. We do have a political arm, but CWTA itself is a 501c3. And we recently had a forum on the 14th of January with the mayoral candidates. In years past, we've had gubernatorial forums. We had a mayoral forum for the last mayoral election. And if there's a runoff, our next forum will be March the 11th at the Chicago Temple with whoever those top vote getters are, because the way things look right now, there will not be a person who will get 50 plus 1% of the votes. That started as a result of Harold Washington running against Jane Byrne and Richard M. Daley. And when Harold got the majority of the votes, they changed the system here in Chicago and said going forward, you'd have to get 50% plus one, no one election. And allegedly, they're all nonpartisans in a mayoral election. But back to me, I am the Illinois Political Director of the Rainbow Push Coalition. I am co-chair of the Chicago Board of League of Women Voters, and I am vice chair, administrative vice chair of IVI-IPO, Independent Voters of Illinois, Independent Precinct Action, and I'm on the Citizen Action Illinois Policy Council, and that's enough.
You're very active. Both of you guys are very active in politics. Now, the city.
But I also
Yes.
belong to Fellowship Missionary
Yeah,
Baptist
Baptist Church.
Church.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Throw that in.
Exactly.
Make that clear.
Okay, so we all know each other from
Right. My
Fellowship
kids
Missionary
went to
Baptist
grammar
Church.
school with you.
Yes, we did go to grammar school.
When
too.
they were-
And people to this day don't believe that I grew up in an African American community.
Yeah, well, everybody over at the church, all those young people in your age group, all know you because
Yes.
all of the kids over there, most of them, went to St. Charles Lawanda.
Lawanda,
Even
yes.
though they went to Fellowship
Exactly,
Church,
yes.
they went to school at St. Charles Lawanda.
That's true, which no longer exists anymore, unfortunately.
Right,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
that's true. Now, getting back to the city council, as we know, the city council is comprised of 50 aldermen.
Yes.
But this time, there's 16 vacancies currently, so that's 1/3 basically of city council that's up for grabs, apart from other contenders running against incumbents. There's a lot of, as I said, since the threshold is 473 signatures minimum to get on a ballot, everybody is running. A ton of people are running. You, as an alderman, having served 2 terms already, 8 years, what can you tell these new freshman aldermen that are going to be coming in about the roles and responsibilities of an alderman?
Right. So first thing, as I stated out, if you're don't have a servant's heart, if you're doing this, for a paycheck or to get to the next level and just grow and try to be the next, president, it's good to have aspirations. I'm not saying that, but this seat is about serving, and that's the first and foremost thing. Otherwise, if you even get in, and I've seen it happen, you won't be back in 4 years from now if you're not serving the residents, and that's the first and most important thing. The next thing is that things are changing now, back from when from years ago, because a lot of people are rubber stamping, and that's why also you're getting more people to leave, because you have to work now. You have to read legislation. When you have a mayor like Mayor Lori Lightfoot, who I appreciate in a way, it pushes you not to just be rubber stamping, although you still have some of that going on, but it challenges you to make sure you're reading legislation, making sure that you're looking at it, knowing what you're talking about when it comes to ordinances, and not just pushing things through. And so if you're not willing to sit down and read so you can present your case and your arguments on things that's in the council, don't think about coming here to escape, because it was a time you could just sit there, and as long as you rubber stamp, you were taken care of. No, because those coffers are not like that anymore, where one particular person, a mayor or somebody, take care of you. Your constituents going to want to know, what have you been doing in that council? And that's what I encourage. Be a servant, but also you have to be able to come in there really doing the work and reading and adding value. That's the word I'm looking for. Adding value to the seat.
Sure. Betty, do you have anything to add to that?
I agree with David that it's no longer a rubber stamp kind of situation. There were times when people, actually, alderman was a part-time job. So they just showed up on Wednesdays for the council meeting, and the mayor, whoever the mayor was at the time, said, we're passing this, this, and this, and they said all in favor, and everybody said aye, and maybe 1 or 2 people like a Dick Simpson or somebody would go against it before we had a real progressive. You had Anna Langford, who was the first black female in the city council. So there have been a few over the years who were against. They were not rubber stamps.
Right.
But for the most part, they didn't have enough non-rubber stampers to get anything stopped,
Right.
for lack of a better way of putting it. So it was a rubber stamp council, and as Alderman Moore has said now, that doesn't work anymore. You know, people in the community, in your ward. I mean, I look and see what my alderman voted for. There are things he's voted for that I didn't like, and I called him and I said, hey, you know, I didn't like that, you know, and I'm at a point where, you know, I'll get to a point. The previous alderman, I worked very hard to get the one we have now because he was one of those rubber stamp people. I live in the 42nd ward, so, you know, and after a while, if you're not doing what we want done, we being the constituents of the ward, we kick you out.
That's right.
And that happens now, which is why you have a whole new crew coming in, because there are a number of aldermen who decided not to run because they knew they didn't have a snowball chance in you know where of getting reelected.
That was going to be my next question, because I cannot recall a time where there were 16 vacancies for the
Never,
city
ever.
council. This is, to me, it's unprecedented, and now there's 16 vacancies, but you guys pretty much have summed it up. Now the alderman has to read legislation, know what they're reading, and know what to do based on what they've read. And it's not a part-time job. In the beginning, many years ago, people thought it was
Yeah, it
a
was
part-time
part-time.
job. That's
Not
not the case
anymore.
anymore. And more voters are becoming aware of what
Right.
their alderman has been doing in the ward those past 4 years. And if they haven't been doing their job, they're voting them out.
For example, back in the day, you called your alderman for every single thing. People now know the alderman is not the person that determines whether your garbage gets picked up or not. That's the committeeman. That's a whole nother position. It's a
Exactly.
party position.
Yeah.
But things that people used to call the alderman for every single thing, that's not the case anymore.
Okay. Since we're running short of time, let's talk about the mayoral race, which is very interesting.
Yes.
You've got 9 candidates that are running. Of course, 4 years
Exactly.
ago, there was 14 candidates that ran, if I'm
Right.
not mistaken.
Yeah, 14. There
And
were
Lori
14.
Lightfoot got into a runoff with Tony
Tony
Preckwinkle,
Preckwinkle.
and Lori Lightfoot won. This year, I don't know if she, based on what we talked about with respect to the city council, with the alderman, because people are holding her accountable. Even though, to be fair, she had to rule or govern during a pandemic, a global pandemic, okay?
And she inherited a mess.
And she did inherit a mess. But let me get your thoughts about these 9 people that are running for mayor.
The first thing I want to say about the mayoral race is that I wish we had ranked choice voting. We had ranked choice voting, it would save a lot of money, and we wouldn't have to spend all the money that we're going to have to spend for an April 4th election, because we would have a mayor February 28th.
28th.
That's the first thing. The second thing is that there are a number of people running for mayor, and I can't really think of any that I would say are not qualified. I think, for lack of a better word, I think pretty much all of them have something to bring to the table, but only one of them is going to be the one to carry the ball forward. The current mayor has gone through a pandemic, which never happened before in any of our lifetimes, and she had a lot of money. We were way behind. The same as the governor that we have now. He had all kinds of problems when he went in because of the budget crises. But whoever takes that seat has to be, as David said, it's no longer just kind of sit up there and I want this, I want that, and everybody, all 50 of you vote this way. They've got to figure out how to make the budget get balanced. They've got to figure out how to get an education for the kids in school. They've got to figure out how to develop the south side, the west side, the north side, the downtown. South side has been underdeveloped for years and years and years. So has the west side's been underdeveloped for years and years and years. Every mayor that's ever been elected since I've been voting, and I voted all the way back to the first Mayor Daley, and I may have even voted for the one before that.
Alderman, let me get your take on the mayor. We got 1 minute left, but if you could briefly
Wow.
Wow, it
Time
went
goes by
fast.
fast, yes.
Real quick for me on the mayoral election, and I really disagree with Ms. Betty Magnus, but there's about a couple in there that are not qualified to be mayor. And let me just say that for the
wanna
record.
say that.
Okay, she really stick to what Reverend ever said. If you ain't got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing at all. But I have to, there's a couple in there that are not qualified to be mayor. Unfortunately, we shouldn't be in this situation. And let me tell you, and it's getting to the point what Ms. Betty Magnus said, in terms of development on the south and west side of Chicago, I will say that this mayor has done more in the disinvested communities probably than any other mayor. And I'm also pushed to say even more so than Harold Washington, because he didn't get the chance to fill out
Right.
what he wanted to do.
He left
Not
us too
because
soon.
He left
tried.
us too soon. And so, but we could have gotten more done.
Yes.
Through collaboration.
Right.
It cannot be your way or the highway.
Correct.
You have to work with people.
True.
And so, as I tell people, I have this. I get torn with her because I love her because she has a good heart. But you have to collaborate.
Correct.
And if you're not willing to collaborate, it don't hurt aldermen. It hurt the people. It hurt the people.
You know,
And-
maybe many years ago that used to work, but not anymore. Not
at all.
anymore.
Not at all.
anymore.
That's true.
And so as much as she's done, and she's done a lot,
Yeah.
we could have had more done with collaboration. And if you don't collaborate, we're in trouble.
Well, that ends the show, guys. Thank you very much for
But
appearing on the
don't
panel.
forget to vote.
Yes,
That's
vote
right.
February 28th. Early voting already started. You can
Right.
vote right now, but the actual election day is February 28th.
And if you didn't register to vote, you can still vote. We have
Right.
same-day voter registration in the
And
city
forget
of
what the
Chicago.
polls say. Just go
That's
out there and
right.
vote.
That's right.
Forget the poll. Forget what the polls say.
Right.
Okay? Thank you, guys. And thank you very
you.
much.
Thank you.
The show went by really fast.
I can't believe that was 20 minutes.
That's quick. We should have had another hour. But anyway, next time I have a live show, I'll